History is not a distant echo. It's a living pulse that beats through our present, shaping who we are and how we see each other. Here in Kerala, one name reverberates with both pride and pain: Variyan Kunnath. During a charged by-election campaign in Nilambur, Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan stood before the people and declared that this very land betrayed Variyan Kunnath, and in that betrayal, the left front too became a victim. Those words are not just a statement, they're a spark, igniting questions that demand our attention. Who is Variyan Kunnath, and why does his name carry in every political debate? This is where things get interesting. In Kerala, he is nothing short of a sacred cow, a figure so revered that to criticize him is to stir a hornet's nest. A community is considering him as a cult leader. So people fear to describe the real face of Variyan Kunnath. But today, let's unmask this figure, a villain cloaked in the garb of a freedom fighter, whose legacy of violence hides behind a carefully crafted facade of heroism. Let's step into the heart of this story, because the tale of Variyan Kunnath Kunjahammed Haji and the 1921 Malabar Rebellion is not some forgotten chapter tucked away in dusty archives. It's a battleground, a fierce, contested space where truth is twisted, manipulated, and weaponized for political power. This isn't just about piecing together historical facts for their own sake. It's about understanding how the past is used to shape identity, to sway votes, and to control narratives, especially in places like Nilambur, where history and politics collide. Haji himself is a figure of profound contradictions. To some, he's a hero, a fearless warrior who stood against the might of the British Empire. To others, he's a villain, a communal bigot whose actions unleashed terror on innocent lives. This divide, this tension, is exactly what's being exploited today. Born into a family that burned with anti-British fervor, Variyan Kunnath Kunjahammed Haji rose as a leader in the Khilafat movement, a force that sought to unite Muslims in defense of their faith and against colonial rule. When the Malabar Rebellion erupted in August 1921, Haji seized the moment, declaring a Malayalam Kingdom with Nilambur as its heart. For 6 months, he ruled a parallel government, a Khilafat state that issued its own passports, minted its own currency, enforced Sharia-based laws, and pushed bold agrarian reforms to challenge the oppressive landlord system. This is where the carefully polished narrative of Haji as a pure anti-colonial freedom fighter begins to fray at the edges, revealing a more complex and troubling reality. The rebellion was born from real burning grievances, anger against British oppression and the exploitation of tenants by landlords. But as it spread, it descended into a dark and brutal chaos, marked by horrific violence against Hindu civilians. The accounts from that time are not easy to hear. B.R. Ambedkar, a towering figure of clarity and justice, described the rebellion's acts as blood-curdling atrocities. Annie Besant, a fierce voice for truth, detailed gruesome murders, forced conversions, rapes, and the displacement of an estimated 100,000 Hindus who fled their homes in fear. Modern historians, even those striving for balance, cite chilling numbers: 600 Hindus killed, 2,500 forcibly converted. The Thuvar massacre, where men were slaughtered for perceived loyalty to the British, stands as a stark symbol of this brutality. To dismiss these acts as mere collateral damage or to blame them solely on British divide and rule tactics is to distort the truth beyond recognition. Haji's self-proclaimed Islamic State, his establishment of Sharia courts, and his forces marching under the Turkish Khilafat flag, not the Indian tricolour, point unmistakably to a movement driven by communal and theocratic impulses, not a unified secular vision of Indian nationalism. Some accounts suggest Haji tried to curb the violence. There are stories of him punishing his own men for attacking innocent Hindus, even protecting some Hindu property from destruction. But let's be clear, these efforts, however genuine, do not absolve him of the responsibility for the regime he created. His Malayalam Kingdom was overwhelmingly Muslim, and its targets were overwhelmingly Hindu. Other rebel leaders like Chembraseri Imbichikoya Tangal massacred Hindus who refused conversion. And while Haji may not have personally ordered every act of violence, the communal danger was woven into the very fabric of the movement he led. His own telegrams, where he denied widespread atrocities and claimed only some Hindus who had actively helped the British had been put to some trouble, come across as a weak, self-serving attempt to control the narrative. The evidence, however, tells a different story, one of systemic violence that cannot be so easily brushed aside. The British response was no less horrific. The Wagon Tragedy, where 70 Mapila prisoners suffocated to death in a cramped, airless train carriage, was an act of colonial brutality that shocked the nation and fueled anti-British sentiment. It's an undeniable atrocity, one that deserves to be remembered with outrage. But to use this tragedy as a shield to whitewash the rebellion's communal violence is a deliberate act of selective memory. It's a tactic that highlights one horror to obscure another, shifting all blame to the colonial power while ignoring the rebels' own atrocities. This narrative of Mapila martyrdom has been carefully crafted to transform the image of the rebels, downplaying their role in the communal killings that preceded the British crackdown. The evolution of Haji's legacy is a masterclass in historical revisionism, a stark reminder of how the past can be reshaped for political expediency. For decades after the rebellion, Haji was seen as a riot leader, his movement synonymous with the Mopla riots and even labeled a Hindu genocide by some. But after India's independence in 1947, particularly in Kerala, a concerted effort began to rewrite this story. Leftist historians recast the rebellion as a class struggle, a revolt of the oppressed against landlords and colonial rulers. The Kerala government went further, officially recognizing the rebels as freedom fighters. This rebranding, however, is not without its critics. Hindu traditionalists and nationalists call it historical whitewashing, a sanitization that glosses over the atrocities committed against Hindus. The centenary of the rebellion in 2021 laid bare this divide. While the left-led state government celebrated the rebellion as a triumph of resistance, Hindu organizations mourned the victims, holding memorials for those lost to the violence. This is not just an academic debate, it's a living, breathing political weapon. Kerala's mainstream parties, from the left to Congress to the IUML, fiercely defend Haji's legacy, framing any criticism as twisting history or communalizing the past. This defense is no accident. It's a calculated strategy to court the sizable Muslim electorate in Malabar, a clear play for vote bank politics. The IUML, in particular, stands as a staunch guardian of Haji's image, aligning with the historical pride of their constituents, however problematic that pride may be. On the other side, Hindu nationalist groups and the BJP push back with equal force, labeling the rebellion jihadi and comparing it to a Taliban mindset. Their campaign to remove Haji from the national martyrs list, citing his establishment of Sharia courts and the beheading of Hindus, is not just about setting the historical record straight. It's about mobilizing Hindu sentiment, both in Kerala and across India, to fit a broader narrative of historical injustices and to demonize Muslim historical figures. The controversy over the proposed Variyan Kunnath film brought this battle into sharp focus. It wasn't just a movie, it was a proxy war for control of the narrative, a struggle that directly impacts political power in Kerala and beyond. The truth about Variyan Kunnath Kunjahammed Haji is not simple. He was undeniably an anti-colonial rebel, a man who challenged the might of the British Empire. But he was also the leader of a movement that unleashed brutal communal violence, targeting Hindus with forced conversions and killings. To portray him solely as a patriotic freedom fighter is a deliberate distortion, an act of historical appeasement that sacrifices truth for political gain. To ignore the sectarian nature of the rebellion, the murders, the conversions, the displacement, is an abject failure of historical integrity. The ongoing debate over Haji's legacy is a stark reminder of how history can be weaponized by ideology to serve the agendas of the present. When lives are lost and narratives are contorted for electoral gain, the cost is not just truth, it's the deep communal polarization that threatens the very fabric of our society. This is not about celebrating regional pride or casting blame. It's about confronting a painful, violent past with unvarnished courage and honesty. We must hold accountable those who would distort history for power, who would use the wounds of the past to divide us today. As we reflect on Variyan Kunnath and the Malabar Rebellion, let us commit to seeking the truth, however uncomfortable, and to building a future where history unites us, not tears us apart.